Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Precision Rifle Media. This week we are having Ryan McMillan on. Ryan's going to come talk about Grayboe, the stock company that he started, say, close to 10 years ago now, but I'm going to let him fill us in a little bit more on that. Uh, Ryan is Ryan's a pretty interesting guy. Ryan, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. I'm going to bring you in right away, and I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. You want to just
Sounds
tell us a
good.
little bit about who you are, and well, first of all, welcome to the show again,
Thanks for
back.
having me.
But you want to just introduce yourself quick, who you are, and where you come from, what you do, and
Yeah. So I guess my first real job, when I was 20, I enlisted in the Navy and became a SEAL. I was in SEAL training when 9/11 happened, so that was an interesting time. Did a couple deployments, about 7 years total. Got out. Um, Went to work with my dad for a little bit, but then I got pretty bored quickly. We ended up starting a business together called McMillan Firearms Manufacturing. I did that for about 8 years. We ended up selling that business. And about 2013, when we sold it, wasn't long after that I started Grayboe in 2014. And I did that on the premise that I felt that there were things that can be done better in the industry with, technology, manufacturing technologies improving over the last few decades. There was a lot I felt we could do. So I started Grayboe in 2014. So you're close. Almost 9 years ago, we started that. For 2 years, we just worked on developing processes, and we launched to the world in 2016. So we've only been selling to the public for about a little over 6 years now, or so, maybe almost 7.
sure.
So, I have a degree in physics. I think that's about all for me. So now I'm just happily running Grayboe and loving what I do every day.
Awesome. You're down in Arizona, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yep, Arizona. You guys don't have the spring ahead, fall back ordeal down there, right?
No, we're
you guys,
the
right?
smart state. Well,
Yeah. But it always gets weird scheduling stuff with people that are down there because it's like, for me, I never know what. I just tell them where I am, and they can figure it out from there or whatever. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just have to know. Every twice a year we change back and forth from Pacific to Mountain, so we just have to know where we're at basically. So.
Oh, is that what you do? Okay.
Yeah. Well, we don't change. So our clocks don't change at all. It's like we change because everybody else changes and we stay the same. So when everybody else goes ahead, we stay, but that puts us like on Mountain Time. And when everybody else goes back, we stay, but that puts us on Pacific Time. So it's confusing.
Yeah. No, that's funny. I don't know. They should just do away with it. Either way, let's talk about some stocks. So, when you talk about working for your dad was Kelly McMillan.
Yeah.
That's that's Ryan McMillan. Obviously, that's a pretty well-known name in the game here, and probably has a little something to do with the design of a couple of the earlier stocks.
That's right. Yeah.
But since then, you've released, I don't know, what you got, 5 hunting stocks and 3 or 4 tactical stocks now.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
We've kind of I'm trying to think if we've discontinued any. We have discontinued one, but that was a tactical stock. So yeah, I think we've got five hunting stocks and 2 tactical stocks. There's one hybrid in there, like the Phoenix is you can kind of count it as both. So
Yeah, a little bit of both. So, which one's your favorite one?
Honestly, I love the Eagle. The one we just launched is my favorite because it's a hunting stock. It's lightweight. To me, it just feels good. It's got the same angle grip as like an M4. So the traditional grips that are kind of swoop back.
Yep.
To me, they don't fit your hand very well because your fingers are all crunched up, and I got big hands. But the Eagle, it's got a grip that replicates kind of like an M4, but it's lean. It just looks really good. I love the lines on it, and the pistol grip angle is so unique that to me it makes it really stand out amongst the other stocks. So that's my favorite.
Sure, it's fairly lightweight too, right?
Yeah, we've got a couple different models. Well, technically we've launched one. It's the adjustable. Where are we at with weight on that? We're a little over 2 pounds, I think. And then we've got the non-adjustable that will launch. I think that's going to launch in May. and that'll be, I think, right around 28 ounces is the estimation. So that'll be one of our lighter weight stocks.
Sure. So what's the universal inletting? How does that work?
Well, so this is one of the things that, I saw that I felt like we could do better. We made a commitment to mold in our inlets. So I've got to kind of start with this. I don't know of any other composite stock makers like us that do that. Everybody typically machines in their inlets. There's some advantages and disadvantages to that, but the advantages are that we have consistent inlets all the time. So that's one thing that we do. To take that a next step further, what the universal inlet really just refers to, like in a Remington 700, you have all these different clones, right? So there's, I don't know how many, but there's probably dozens of different action makers out there making, Remington 700 clones. They're all the ports are slightly different, bolt release are slightly different. All that stuff is slightly different. So even if you have a Remington 700 clone, you're still, if you're making stocks the traditional way, you're still machining for all these little nuanced parts about these actions. So we figured out that there's a couple ways to kind of get around not having to machine for these pieces, and especially because we mold in the inlets, and our goal is to not touch the stock at all with a CNC machine. We had to figure out a way to get around all these nuances. So we did that by dropping the top line of the stock. As a matter of fact, it's not like it wasn't anything that we invented. I mean, that's what chassis makers do. Chassis makers the same way. They drop the top line of the stock down below the ejection port and on both sides. And then basically you avoid the vast majority of all of the cuts on there. So that's one big thing that we've done. Universal barrel channel. If you're a stock maker, how complicated it can be to machine for every single possible barrel option on the market. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So if you want to be efficient and you want to really get product to the customer at a really good price, you have to, take another lesson from the chassis makers and have this universal barrel channel. So we did that, and we launched the Phoenix with that. That was the first stock we did with the universal barrel channel and inlet, and it's been our best seller. So I think, to me, that tells us that people are okay with it. So at first we weren't sure. It was the first composite stock that was made like that. I mean, everybody else was, machining their barrel channels like they always had. So, and then the last thing we did is the bottom inlets, right? So you've got a number of different types of bottom inlets. The two most prominent ones are your M5 and your BDLs, right?
Yep.
So what we did was we ended up combining those two. Everything on the bottom is M5 now. We went ahead and we made an M5 DBM and an M5 floor plate, so that if you want the floor plate, which is synonymous to your BDL, you can have that, or you can have your magazine fed, and it's all the same inlet. For us, because we mold in everything, it makes less complex in our manufacturing process, less molds that we have to make, lowers our cost, which that all transfers to the customer. So, and then for the customer, on the customer side, I just saw how complicated it is when you're a customer trying to figure out what you have and how to order the right stock, relay that information to the stock company, and then all that complexity compounds as a company tries to make that stock through a process. All it takes is one little error, and that person has the wrong stock, it doesn't fit right, whatever. And it just really makes for a complex operation, which in turn, it's all about the customer. So we're just trying to give the customer the best experience. And that customer doesn't really know better, but they get a bad experience because the process was complicated. So ultimately, we're just trying to simplify, and that means that there's not as much customization, but there's always, other companies out there like McMillan who are gonna make custom stuff. And you go to McMillan, if you have something super custom and you want that exact barrel channel, to fit your contour, that's what they do. And as far as right now, and so there's companies out there that do that, but that's not the way we're going. So, right.
And I do like that. It makes sense, like, for a guy to be able to just buy a stock. They're not chassis, they're stocks, and just be able to go kind of put it together himself, right? That's where I kind of see a lot of this bolt gun world stuff going, right? First it was ARs and everybody was building them in their garage. And now you're starting to see where the bolt gun stuff is being made kind of the same way, right? Tight tolerances, and you buy the barrel for the action, and you screw it together and you put the stock in and bed it and do whatever, and then you got something that shoots pretty good, and you didn't have to wait, you know, forever to have somebody do it for you, like you used to have to. But talking about all that machining and stuff, I had a Remington 700 stock show up for a left-handed rifle that I did, and it was machined for a right-handed trigger, right-handed safety.
Yeah. That's just one of the things where it's either, you have to have employees who really know every little nuance about not just that gun, but every possible configuration, all the little things. I just saw how complex it was because, rifles are not made of one part. They're made of many parts. You're talking about the trigger. Most people don't even, when you think about a gun, you think barrel, the action, and the stock. But there's other things. There's a trigger, there's a bottom metal, and there's all kinds of little things that go on there that affect whether it fits or not. The pinch points, there's all kinds of stuff. So
pillars.
Yeah, exactly. So for us, what we try to do when we mold in the inlets, our inlets, once we get the molds right, our inlets are consistent every single time. So the beautiful thing about that is one of the other issues that I saw is that, when you put a stock on a CNC machine, there's always room for error. Another area where there's room for error, whether it's, the guy, puts in the wrong program, you get your offsets wrong, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff. Yeah. But for us, our molds our molds and our inlet tooling is right. It's right every single time, no matter what. So it's like it's great when it comes to that, and it's super accurate. It's super the fit between the action and the stock is as good as you're going to get. And we've done enough testing and heard back from enough customers to know that, like, most of our customers don't even need to bed the stock because the consistency of the inlet is so good.
Really? Wow, that's pretty impressive. That's like that was the big thing with the foundation stocks, was they were made out of that, whatever they're made out of, and they kind of like self-bedding.
Micarta, yeah.
Micarta, yeah.
So, but they still have to machine their stocks, from what I understand. So we put our material under extreme pressure and heat and forge it. Basically, it's like a forge. It's not, but it's like that. And so ours doesn't. It forms around a consistent piece of tooling. Yeah. And I don't know. I to be honest with you, I don't know exactly how Foundation does theirs, but I've looked at them and I would just assume that they have to machine them. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Probably. Yeah. I don't know either. That was just something that was kind of neat when they came out, right? Was that it seemed like they had a little bit of give, and when you torqued everything in, they kind of sucked in together, and it was just, took some of that out of it, So if you're kind of having that same thing, I see that as being a pretty big benefit,
Yeah.
How easy do they swap back and forth between stuff? If you got a Lone Peak Fusion and a Terminus and a Impact, and you want to, one stock, or like even for the 22s, right? This new 700 clone 22s and stuff. How well do they flop back and forth?
Fine. That was kind of the whole point of the universality, right? So basically bringing the top line down and having, the singular bottom inlet, universal barrel, you can literally swap it from stock from rifle to rifle. There's no issue at all, because the primary things about a Remington 700 clone are the lugs in the right place, the screw holes are in the right place, the main things are in the right place. It's just all the little stuff so as long as you have basically everything's based off your guard screw spacing and your recoil lug. So your datum is that rear guard screw, then you got your front screw, and then you got your lug, and those are you got to make sure those are in the right spot. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the radius. Other than that, that's where these action makers kind of take their leeway.
So you say that you are kind of forging these things, right? So I'm not in a manufacturing, I don't do any of that, but in my head, I kind of picture like injection molding, like in high school where you make the screwdriver handle,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, but it's taken quite a long time to figure out how to do this. So traditionally, stock makers, fiberglass, carbon fiber stock makers have this pretty laborious hand laid up process The material itself is hard to work with. It cures fast. You don't have a whole lot of time to deal with it. It's very thick, right? If you want it strong, it's thick. So there's a lot of issues. And so we spent a long time figuring out how to make these stocks in a very efficient, in a very strong manner. So yeah, I say forge because it's the simplest way to get the mind to think about how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a version of an ejection process, which we've invented and created on our own, and it's very consistent too.
So what are they made out of? I know you probably can't tell us the total secret blend, but like what is? I mean, is it a fiberglass? Is it a resin? Like what are these things?
Yeah. So the resin is a general term. The type of resin is an epoxy. Epoxy is well known to be the most stable and the strongest type of resin there is on the market. So we use epoxy-based resin. So resin is just like what would you say? Try to compare this to when you like bake a cake or something, right? Because it's very similar. So your resin is like your sugar and butter, right? Like your resin that's the base of the whole formula. And then you have your additives, right? So we add in fiberglass, we add in other lightening agents and all kinds of other little things to give it certain properties. Fiberglass, we use fiberglass strands, or you can use carbon fiber strands. It's dealing in this business, especially in rifle stocks, it's kind of hard to discuss because people have this idea of carbon fiber as having a certain look. Well, carbon fiber cloth will give you a certain look, but there's a million ways to do carbon fiber. Like
everybody wants that woven look with like the race car parts,
Yeah, but carbon fiber can be used in many different ways, and so we use it in our formula too. It's just not seen like it is like on a carbon fiber cloth stock or something like that. So I don't want to go into that. That's a whole hour or two on that, but yeah. So basically, that's what it is. It's kind of like it's a mixture, a thick mixture of a base formula, base epoxy resin with some fiberglass and additives to lighten and strengthen and give certain properties based upon what we want the stock to end up as.
Sure. What you guys have a lot of cool designs now. I'll be honest, I haven't gone to the website a whole lot. I have an early Grayboe stock probably from. Well, you probably were just starting to sell them back when I bought that. It's oh man, I don't want to screw it up and say the wrong model. It's like it's the A5, but not the A5, right?
The Renegade, yeah.
The Renegade, yeah.
Oh, that's okay too. When we started very originally when we started Grayboe, the first two products we had were the Outlander and the Renegade. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of in partnership to some degree with McMillan at that time. And since then, we'd split off on our own for other reasons. But we had taken that exact model and we had licensed it from McMillan. We had licensed that model, and they allowed us to license it. We paid royalties for it for a period of time. So it is a replica of the A5. So there's nothing wrong with saying that.
No, I didn't want to. I don't know.
No, I get it. It's okay. I'm not okay.
I just forget all the names, everything.
Yeah.
There's so many, everything. There's so much stuff anymore. Like back when you were first started, even there wasn't as many things. It was like you got a 700 and it had like a McMillan A5 or an AIC or an Accuracy International, and that was like it pretty much.
It's crazy. It's really crazy what's happened in just stock making in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's unreal the amount of advancements, right?
Yep.
Well, that's kind of cool. It's interesting that they get like injection molded or whatever. It makes sense. So let's the other thing. So where I was going with that, going to the website and how old my stock is. Since I went on your website recently, you guys got all kinds of cool camo patterns and stuff now that like you can just buy. That's awesome. Cryptech and multicam and I forget the other one. The like the multicam, but it's like the smaller, whatever. Either way, I mean, there's all kinds of cool colors and stuff that you didn't have before. How is all that stuff applied?
Well, so there's two different ways at the moment that we finish our product. We either paint it or we hydro dip it. So hydro dip it's a relatively in-depth process. It takes us a bit of time, but the hydro dip is what you seem to be referring to. The hydro dip, basically, there's companies out there, QU, Cryptech, ATAC, they create all these camo patterns, and then they basically license that pattern to a company to print that pattern on a film, a hydro dip film, so that companies like us and other companies can apply this film to our products. So how that works is we get this film, and we have this big tank of water, and then there's a process to it. There's some chemicals we have to spray on and stuff, and there's a base coat we have to paint on, and then we lay the film in the water, and then we basically dip the stock through the film into the water, and the film adheres to the stock. And then we do that on each side because the stock's super complex in geometry. So luckily the film will stretch around the complex geometry of the stock, so it's good. But you can't do the whole stock. You can only do one side. Well, you can do the whole stock, but the seams don't come together well. So we do it in two sides. And then, the film's not strong, so we have to put some kind of clear coat over the top. And our clear coat has a nice grip surface, like a textured surface. Plus, it protects the film. So that's how we do that. And we offer, our most popular ones are both of the QUs, a bunch of the Cryptechs, ATAC's AU. There's a camo called it's like it's escaping me right now, but
yeah. Well, it's like you want to start talking about it. You got Max 4 and Max 5, and it's like
yeah.
same thing. Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like the multicam, but with the smaller thing.
Yeah, I know. And I don't even, I know all the names, but I'm trying to okay, what is the name of that? We have this one called Coyote Fur. Totally cool. You look at it, literally looks like coyote fur. And so we basically, what we'll do is we don't want to have too many options because then we have to inventory too much stuff. But we have like 8 or 10 options or something, and then we'll try something new. We'll put it on the website, see if people like it, or we'll do some kind of special where we say, hey, we're dipping 15 stocks in this, and see what the response is. Maybe we put it on as a full-time thing, or maybe it's just a one-time thing. So that's kind of how we test
or something.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Do limited runs.
We've done that.
Yeah. One special thing every year, do a yearly, like this year it's the whatever.
I think the last one we did on the Phoenix, I think we released 15 or 20 in a multicam tropic, which I thought was really cool. It's got some really cool bright greens and then some blacks and stuff, and it was really cool. We sold them pretty quick, but we haven't released that as a standard.
Sure.
Product yet.
When you paint them, what are they coated with? Like, is it a Cerakote? Is it some special blend of something, or?
Well, we don't use Cerakote. There's other paints out there that are cheap.
There's lots of good stuff. Cerakote's the one everybody knows, right?
Right. So, that's the case. I mean, everybody knows Cerakote. Everybody asks if we paint with Cerakote. But at the end of the day, there's some limitations when it comes to painting composites with Cerakote, in my opinion, versus some other companies out there who people don't know about. But if you know what if you research paint, that there's some better options. So right now we use a paint. It's called NanoChem, and it's been really good for us. It's got a great texture. It's a great matte finish. Sprays easy. It's taken us a little while. For the first 5 years or so, we used a Sherwin-Williams product, but this one we switched to this one recently, and it's taken us a little bit of time to just get all the processes down. But man, it's really good looking paint now. Like I'm really pleased. And we do a web over the top too. With the other stuff, we had to mix our own web. There was times where we couldn't get it consistent because web is really hard to make, and so they ended up having like a web that you could just buy. Like we didn't have to mix anything, and it sprays on beautifully, really consistent. And so we've been really happy with that. It's like I said, taking us some time. Anything new like that, especially when you're doing lots and lots of stocks, anything new like that's gonna take some time to get your processes right. But we're pretty much over the hump on that.
Sure. When did you start doing that? I just did an olive gray stock in another left-handed rifle, actually. About a year ago that I put a Grayboe on.
It would have been, we probably transitioned fully to it right at the end of last year. So it might not have been 6 months yet.
Okay. Yeah. So this one's probably pre that.
Yeah.
That was the stock that's got the little bubble in the back.
Yeah. Some of our, there's a number of our stocks that have that.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, I guess probably. That was a pretty sweet little thing, though. I mean, it's just neat to be able to have another spot to reference,
yeah. Yep.
The dipping. I worked on a shotgun probably 10 years ago. And you know what aerocroil is, or silicroil, or whatever they call it now.
Mm-mm.
Comes in an orange can. It's like WD-40, but like if you want to actually break nuts loose.
Okay.
And so if I took that, and it was a shotgun duck gun with it was a Benelli with a choke stuck in the end of it. So I sprayed a bunch of Croil in a cap, and I set it in the corner, and I let it sit there 3-4 days. I went back, I took a rag to wipe it off, and the whole like inch and a half of the camo wiped right off the end of the barrel.
That didn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
No, that was a bummer. I did not think that through.
Yeah.
Although once the camo was wrecked, I just welded a nut to the inside of the choke and pulled it out, so it was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of, when you select paints, you got to be careful on what they can withstand. And so that's a big thing, got to be able to withstand some kind of, chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
Certain chemicals, not every chemical they're going to be able to withstand, like MEK or something will eat them away. But most of our paints will handle most chemicals like acetone and all that stuff. And even
the clean guns and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's another big one. I think it's called DEET or something. A lot of people are cleaning guns.
With DEET. DEET is like a mosquito repellent, but it'll eat the paint off your truck.
Right. So that's what it is. Right. It's mosquito repellent. I thought it was, and there's other things where you're cleaning your gun. So we've got to have some resistance to our paint. And when we work with bigger companies, sometimes they require these types of things. So we have to make sure we're compliant with all that. So we only have one paint, so it goes to all of our customers, right? So so it's not like we have certain paint for certain customers. It's paint we have is what everybody gets.
Yeah, those like Cerakote's great or whatever, but like for stocks that like an epoxy type of paint seems to be a little bit nicer sometimes than the Cerakote.
Yep. That the two part, whether polyurethane, if it's 2-part, is typically they're stronger.
Yeah, and I don't know, I think they look a little nicer on a stock too. The finish on them generally but everybody likes different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what's coming down the pipe? Anything we can talk about that's cool that you're working on?
Sure. Yeah. We are looking at, so we should be launching a new version of the Phoenix here next month. That's been by far our biggest seller. So we typically don't say anything about it because, I don't know, it's just kind of how we've done things. We kind of keep it quiet, but it's okay. I don't mind talking a little bit about it. So I mentioned the Eagle. We've got the adjustable Eagle out now, and then the non-adjustable will come out in May as well. So we'll launch both the Phoenix 2 and the non-adjustable Eagle in May. We're going to be redoing the Ridgeback. That is going to be a whole game changer. So I don't want to get too far into that yet because there's some things about that I don't want to say. But the Ridgeback is going to be completely, well, I shouldn't say completely. It's going to look and resemble the Ridgeback, the original Ridgeback, but it'll have some things in it that are totally new and unique. So I'm really, really excited about that.
The Ridgebacks, that's the rifle. That's the stock I just put on that 338.
Yeah, that's the one with all the bells and whistles. That's the tactical stock with all the bells and whistles on it.
Yeah. That was a sweet stock. And the thing too is like here, just for anybody listening, you can get it. It's $649, but it's got all the rails on it, adjustable cheek piece, the comb. I mean, it's all pretty well ready to roll right off the bat. Like he said, I just kind of slapped it in there, and I mean, I bedded it and stuff, but it pretty much just, I mean, everything was right and good, and it was a sweet stock. That was one that I got done with, and everybody, like, that was a rifle when people saw it, they're like, I want one of those,
Yeah. Well, I think it was the first stock that I ever saw, and I believe it was the first stock that was a composite molded stock that had M-lock rails in it. So
Yeah, built into the side.
built into the side. So we were pretty proud of that. And now it's other companies are doing it now, and we do it with other stocks. Like the Phoenix has one. But that was the first stock that anybody had ever done with built-in M-lock rails in the composite. So that was pretty cool for us.
Yeah. And like the other thing too is like the Eagle that we were talking about. It's $569. I mean, that's a pretty reasonable price for a stock if you're going to be building yourself a rifle, like a custom hunting rifle or whatever. I mean, $569 to buy it, and that's probably just starting price. I didn't go through and fill out any of the.
Well, that's all the adjustment. That's adjustable cheek piece, adjustable length of pull. Paint job, everything, butt pad. A lot of companies, when you go on there, they'll have like a base price and then you're adding a pad to it. Like,
that's what I was expecting. That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. It's 560 whatever, but then you want, now you want a color, and then you want this, and then you want that, and
you want your stock inlet? Well, then I'm like, yeah, I gotta put a rifle in the thing.
Right.
So, we don't do that. Like, everything is right there. So you're gonna go on our website and you'll see a stock that's $569, and that's what you pay. And you go on another website or something, and the stock starts, let's say, at $569, but then you add a pad, and then you add the inlet, and then you add the paint, and you're at $800.
Mm-hmm.
So we, like I said from the beginning, we had this goal of making stocks in a much more efficient way, and we do. We make stocks way more efficient, which enables us to keep our costs low, or our sales price low too.
And
we've been proud of that.
The other thing that's kind of cool is, like, I don't know, I don't see it very much on the website anymore, but it used to be like the People's Rifle Stock, right?
Yeah, that's our logo.
Yeah, it used to be a little more all over on the website, but what's the deal with that? Why is that your motto?
Well, I think when we first started the company, we didn't have, first of all, we didn't have a logo. We couldn't decide on anything. So we were just like, when it comes, it comes. But when we first started the company, we really wanted to be able to give the customer so rifle stocks are relatively expensive, and especially composite stocks. So like I said, I thought we could do them better for less expensive. And it was like about giving the people a better product, or a good product for a better price, and have more people able to come into the market to get a composite stock. So our whole, the people kind of, what that means behind that is, kind of like the working class, right? Like we felt like composite stocks were kind of for the people who were, high end earners, because you're paying $1,000. And even today you're paying, you buy a chassis stock, you're paying $1,500 for it, or even a good composite stock, you're paying $1,000 for it.
Well, it's like people ask me what's it cost to build a custom rifle? And it's like, well, you got, I figure I give them 12, 13 for a stock, by the time you get it, you're done, and then, 300 for a trigger. And then, what do you pay? 500 for a barrel plus chambering and stuff. And then another, 13, 15 for an action, and those are the kind of the rough numbers that I give them, just because it's easy numbers, but it's not too far off, really,
No, that's really accurate. So that the whole point behind that for us was just, we wanted to be the people's rifle stock, because we wanted to be able to get a good quality stock to more people. And really what that meant is bringing that retail price down to a point to where, the working man can afford it. That's really kind of what was behind all of that. And it took us some time to really think through how to say that in a really concise way. And so we have an employee here. He's a hilarious guy. His name's Steve LaPree. And I don't know if you know him or not, but he's just such a fun guy to be around. But anyway, anything you see that's funny on our website, or any like wordsmithing that you see that's funny, he's come up with it. And but that's kind of represents who we are. And he came up with this one day. He's like, "Hey, dude," he just said it off the cuff, like, "We're the people's rifle stock," like, and that just stuck. Everybody like, "Oh man, that's it." And we just at that point adopted it. We sat on it for a little bit just to make sure, but we adopted it as our motto from here on out. So So it also keeps us focused on what our mission is, trying to get, high quality stocks at a reasonable price to the vast majority of people that want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing too is like you were talking about like the fully customizable this and that and the other, whatever, that's all good and fine. But
Mhm.
like the average guy doesn't gain a whole lot out of having like me specifically. I'm just going to use myself as an example. If I go to build a rifle that I'm going to hunt with, I don't want to spend, and there's people out there with all kinds of money and they want to do whatever they want with it. That's fine. But I don't have the money for that. And I know I'm going to beat the hell out of this thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I don't need it to be the most customized, to my specifications. I need it to be a solid piece of gear that looks decent, looks good, looks nice. I mean, like I said, the ones that I've had, they're very nice. I mean, the fit and finish is good, and they're you're not lacking anything in that department,
Yeah.
and but it's also, I know I'm going to drag it through the woods, and I'm going to drop it and bang it against rocks and scrape it up against trees and stuff. So like for me personally, I don't want to spend $1,300 on something that's got the perfect barrel channel and the perfect little cut for the trigger and what I don't care, as long as there's not stuff that's getting in there to hurt anything, and it's super functional. I mean, that's all I want.
Yeah. Well, that's to really, like I said in the beginning, with the fit, the rifle stock fit to the action, ours is better because it's molded in, it's consistent every single time.
Yeah.
So when it comes to functionality, we win. Now, what the custom stock makers do is they make sure that your barrel channels, like the contour of the barrel channels, right, everything's right. We mold that in the beginning. We mold it into standard specs, so we make sure everything clears, like the trigger, or the not the trigger, the safety, which is on the trigger. The safety, we make sure that there's enough clearance for the safety. We make sure there's enough clearance for the trigger. We make sure there's enough clearance for all the little things, and we make them look good, right? Like there's enough. Not like we're making them look like crap. We make them look good.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to get. Yeah, it's a hard thing to describe, because like it's like when people say, well, it's cheap. Well, it's not cheap. It's inexpensive.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but how do you get that across all the time? Right. When you're talking about certain things, right. It's like you're not lacking anything. It's just done in a way that they can save you money. But how do you get it across?
The crazy thing is it's a good distinction you made, cheap and inexpensive. The process that we've developed is much more complex. Like it's much more sophisticated than, let's say, our competitors in general, right? That's what has allowed us to make a better product for a better price. I mean, that's what it is. So like, one of the reasons why some of the other stocks cost so much is because there's a ton of labor going into each stock. Not just all the little customizations, but just the general hand layup of a stock is very labor intense. So again, we've spent lots and lots of money and lots of time to develop a process that eliminates all of that so that a customer can still get the same quality product without the headache of trying to figure all the little details out and get it for a good price. So, it's not like we're doing the same process and we figure, we're cheapening things. Like we've actually doubled down on our process, spent more money, more time, more effort getting that process right so that we can make stocks, good quality stocks, in a better, more efficient way. And that's what business is all about. That's how you get a foot up on your competitors, right? You got to be doing something better. You can't just go out and do it the same way everybody else did it. There's a reason why we don't have a carbon fiber stock right now. And that's because they're hard to make. But I could make a carbon fiber stock tomorrow, but I'm not going to until I can make it more efficient than every single other company in the market. And we know how to do it, and we're in the process of doing it. And I assume we'll have one probably by the end of the year, maybe early next year. But I'm not going to do it in a way that just kills me in labor, and I have to hire, dozens of people to do it. I'm going to do it in a really efficient way. I'm going to use machines as much as I can, and I'm going to use really skilled employees. And so that's how we do it. We hire skilled employees, and our employees work closely with pretty high tech machinery.
Sure. Yeah. How much lighter is carbon fiber than fiberglass? Do you know off the top of your head?
That's a really hard question to answer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to deal with it. So if you're looking at cloth and cloth, carbon fiber cloth, general carbon fiber cloth, and carbon fiber cloth and fiberglass cloth, I think there's probably about a 25% difference in weight. However, people think carbon fiber is stronger. Now, carbon fiber is stronger by weight, okay? So, but if you take two pieces of cloth, a carbon fiber and a fiberglass is still stronger. It's just heavier, right? So fiberglass is extremely strong, but what you get with the carbon fiber is you get a reduction in weight. And we're talking specifically cloth here. You get a reduction in weight that outweighs its weight and strength. Is that how to say it? It's stronger for its weight. So there's a lot of little misnomers out. So if you were to make a carbon fiber stock like some of our competitors make them, let's say it's a 28 ounce carbon fiber stock, you'd probably be at 32 ounces, maybe depending on how many layers of cloth they put in there. You're looking at an added, maybe you're reducing your weight 4, 5, 6 ounces in a comparable stock.
Sure. Yeah, it's something that you just don't. I mean, it's nothing I've ever questioned before, really. It's like, oh, carbon fiber, that's the light one.
Well, our business is full of all kinds of little nuance, and I love it because that's what I do, and that's what separates us as companies from one another. But the customer, a lot of times because those nuances, they're complicated, and sometimes what happens in the industry is these kind of, someone does a good job of marketing something that's not necessarily, that's, I don't want to say necessarily true, but like is not true in all cases. And people get an idea like, oh, you have to have a carbon fiber stock to be light. No, you don't. Actually, there's a million ways to make a light. I shouldn't say million. There's a lot of ways to make a light stock. Carbon fiber is one of them, but it's a pretty labor intensive way to do it. So, we have like the Trekker stock. It's, I don't know, it's coming in like 27, 28 ounces. It's a lightweight stock, doesn't have any carbon fiber in it.
Yeah, that's the one, the Trekker. That's the one that's got the like the cutout in the bottom, right? Yeah. Like a minimalist type of a stock, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a neat looking stock.
Yeah. So our goal when we made that one was like, how do we get rid of everything that doesn't need to be there? All the material. So when we start making stocks, and you're looking at, there's two ways to reduce the weight in the stock. It's material and geometry. Those are the two ways you reduce weight. So you either get a material that's lighter weight, or you design the stock in a way that it can be designed in, with less volume, So, and then if you can optimize both of those, if you can get a stock that's designed with the least amount of volume plus the material that's lightweight, and you make sure that the strength to weight ratio is right, then that's your optimal solution.
Sure.
That's what we did with that one. But the big thing was we really needed to rethink how you make stocks. Because that butt area is it's just a big unnecessary. It's just unnecessary to have that much material in the butt.
Yeah. You're going to have to go and check out the stock if you haven't seen it. Cause like when he says you got all that unnecessary material, they basically they like grooved out a big old chunk of the bottom there just for, I mean, it's interesting looking. It looks, I don't know what the word would be, but it looks like you could put like stuff in there.
Well, we get people and companies that we work with all the time, like, hey, could you make a place where we can store mags for? And yeah, we could. We haven't, but yeah, you sure could. I mean, it's you got all kinds of room in there to do stuff with. So
yeah, there's a opportunity for somebody to build a little compartment that snaps in there.
Yep.
So you want to talk about Reactor a little bit too?
Yeah, sure.
Give that a couple of minutes here. What's new? What's going on over there?
So just a little recap. We launched our first product, 2020 SHOT Show. And then as everybody know, in March of 2020, COVID happened, right? And so Reactor being a new business in a technology space, we're buying chips, we're buying all kinds of electronics, right? And all of a sudden, the main chip for the what we call the fusion module was literally not available. And we're like, holy cow. So we sold like our first 50 of them right at SHOT Show or right around the time of the SHOT Show, and we couldn't get any more. So that was our first launch. So we were doing small to medium to larger size runs, and we ended up having to redesign the entire thing. That chip was so important. They're the only company who makes that chip. We couldn't get our hands on it. We had to redesign the whole thing, and we had to redesign it for a different application because the application that we were going after with the fusion module, that one particular chip was the main part. So we ended up having to make a different device, launch that just a couple months ago.
Real quick, what does it do?
Oh, yeah, maybe that's So I guess the best analogy I can say is it's like a smartwatch for your firearm. So, you have an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or something, it tracks your heart rate, maybe your steps. You can have little apps on it to where you can, you go for a jog or something and it does your pace and your miles. So that's a very similar thing to what we were after, but because rifles are way more complex, there's way more that we could do with it. So the first version we had basically it was detecting your shots. So it would detect shots, and didn't matter what caliber it was, it would detect your shot and it would log your shot. And then with that shot, there's all kinds of data that we could gather. So the position of your firearm being the major one. So how your firearm was oriented, the inclination, the bearing. What's the third one? Inclination, bearing, and then your rotational. So we knew exactly your position. We could see all the details of the shot. So we could see down to the detail of when you actually pull the trigger, the distance between when you pull the trigger and the firing pin hits the primer, of course the explosion, all the reverberation as the gun's going back and forth during the shot. So, it was like it's like this data is like looking at a shot going off, but in really, really slow time. So it was really cool. And then we do other stuff too, like we can we know based upon your phone, like if your phone's pulling in location data, if your phone's pulling in weather data, there's all kinds of data that we correlate with all this information into one central hub and give you all this information back to you. And it's all premised on each shot. So you shoot a shot and then you get all this data. And you shoot another shot and you get all this data. So that was the first iteration. And then our goal was to then create a dashboard that basically correlated all the data and just help create a better picture, not just of each shot individually, but of groups of shots, and to try to, to create a better shooter. So that was the module idea. We had a heads-up display, basically a real-time heads-up display. So you're looking at your phone, you're on the target, and the heads-up display basically was like, you can almost think of it like you're in an airplane or something, and you've got this heads-up display where it shows your orientation in space. So you knew, like, if I'm shooting uphill, the fusion module heads-up display would tell me I'm at a 7-degree incline. It would tell me exactly what bearing I'm at. It would tell me if I'm rotated or canting, and we know that being canted on a shot can affect your accuracy. So it would tell you if you're at 0 cant or if you're 1 degree or left. So, and that was real time. So if you really wanted to be stable, you could actually look at it, understand that where you're oriented. So we did a lot of really cool things, but that unfortunately got put to the side because that heads-up display chip, literally is still not even on the market. It's 3 years later. So
that's a bummer.
Yeah, but we've come back with all kinds of new products, and so that's as far as I'm going to go with that.
So what's the Reactor 1 do?
So the Reactor 1 is we designed specifically for manufacturers. So it doesn't actually log shots. One of the things that the manufacturers were telling us is that, like, we don't need it to log shots. We don't want it to start when the shot happens. We want to actually just take a snapshot of all these shots that we're taking, and we want to look, and we can zoom in and look at the data and see what's going on, and then it'll help us determine. When I say us, I'm acting as the manufacturer. whether our product is as good as it should be, can be improved. So basically what we're doing for the manufacturer is giving them information, pertinent information to how their products are performing. So, a lot of muzzle brake companies, suppressor companies, ammunition companies, stock companies. So any firearms related company that could make use of, very detailed data during the time of a shot, it's very useful for them.
Like, I don't want to start a fight. You know who Chris Way is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know well, but I know of him.
Yeah, he'd be a cool guy to get some of that stuff in his hands. He does a lot of that. I forget what he calls it. He's got his shooting challenge where you shoot from all the different positions and stuff to see how good of a shooter you really are. Like everybody has a 1/4-minute rifle, but then he's like, oh yeah, do you? How about you get on a barricade?
Well, we now that you say that, it's been a while, but we were actually considering working with him because of that, and then that's when the whole thing kind of fell apart with COVID as far as getting those chips. But we had a number of conversations with him, and we were liking what he was doing. So
yeah, that was that guy. That was the first thing that came to mind. As we were talking about kind of what it was logging and what he's doing, like together, that would be kind of a neat thing to see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool, man. Yeah, I don't know. That stuff's super cool. Hopefully, you can get that thing back online, and the whole chip thing. I don't know. It's still trucks and everything, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I think it'll all come back. But that particular chip that went discontinued is still discontinued, and it's likely that they will never make it again, because since then they've gone to the next version, which they've eliminated some of the features, which were the features we were using. So it's like,
bummer.
So anyway, we'll find a way. We've been focused now on this manufacturing device, which we call Reactor 1. So when we come back to, we'll probably come back to that fusion module type product very soon. And we'll figure out another way to do it. I'm sure there's another way.
So the Reactor 1,
Mhm.
what does it do that's different than the what's it called? The other thing, what's the other product? The Fusion. What is it different? Like what?
The big difference is that the Fusion, well, there's a lot of differences, but the major difference is that the Fusion module was, when you shot, you didn't have to do anything. It logged your shot. It timestamped it, logged it, right? That was the basis of the entire Fusion module. Everything revolved around logging that shot, right? Because all the data was timestamped there. So however much data we ended up having was timestamped right at that shot. We don't do that with the Reactor 1 manufacturing model, because they don't necessarily need that. Fusion module is designed for shooters, to make shooters better, or to give them as much information as we could deliver to them so that they could make good decisions about their shots. But it's not necessarily the same thing for manufacturers. Manufacturers are just interested in looking at the data. They don't care about timestamps on shots. They don't. There's some nuance about that doesn't matter to them. They're really going to dig into the details of the shot to try to see what's going on there, so that they can try to make their product better. Like, for instance, if you're a muzzle brake company and you look at the graphs of your acceleration graphs, let's say, and you see some weird stuff going on with the acceleration, you're like, why is that happening? You never would see it with the naked eye. You have to dig into this data super deep. And so you dig into the data and you see, why is this happening here? And you can then kind of understand what's going on and say, okay, we're going to make this change to the device. And so users for the Fusion module don't care about making changes to devices. They're caring about how their shot performance is. So there's two different outcomes here that we're going after. So the primary thing is we're not logging shots like we were, but there's also other things. We're not pulling in a lot of data from the phone. It's not necessary to pull in other data. Oftentimes they're shooting inside.
It still seems to me like you could use it if you were shooting like off barricades and stuff to track movements and stuff after the shot's fired, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it still seems like it has an application for shooters more than just manufacturers.
Yeah, you definitely could use it as a shooter if you wanted to use it in a PRS match, and you turn it on and turn it off. You push a button, it turns on. You push a button, it turns off. So if you wanted to do that, you could push a button, shoot your round, and come back, turn it off, and then you could go through that and look at, and you would have this timeline of, let's say it took 30 seconds to shoot this round. You'd have this 30-second timeline, and you have all these acceleration spikes, and you'd know that's where a shot is. You could zoom in, and you could look at all the details of that shot. We don't deliver the same type of information, like same type of analyzed data.
So the fusion, you said like you'd pull the trigger and it would like that was what would set it off, and you could tell like the difference between the firing pin moving and the shot actually being fired, and then like you can do all that. Will the reactor pick that up? Because I could see this being pretty useful for like dry fire training, right? Like,
yep.
At your house, strap it onto your rifle, and then you could dry fire. And if you're getting weird movements or something, you could tell that you're flinching, or maybe not flinching would be the word when you're dry firing, but doing some kind of weird movements or something. Or
yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're going to see the same acceleration data from the fusion module to the reactor one. It's the same information. It's just kind of delivered in a different way so that it's more convenient for the user, right? So like I said, when the fusion module, the acceleration starts as soon as the shot's fired, right? Basically the device is asleep so we can save batteries.
Sure.
Until it detects movement. As soon as it detects movement, it turns on. And we set a certain time frame in which we know that a shot event ends. So it's like 150 nanoseconds or something like that. So we turn it off at that point too, right? So we just catch these little time capsules of the event. And so you're going to get these little blocks of data from the fusion module. Whereas with the reactor one, you basically push a button and you've got this, like I said, 30 seconds worth of data, and you're looking at it and you've got these spikes. You know the shot happened here, a shot happened here, and you're going in and zooming in, looking at it and understanding it. Those are all the same. Those little spikes that you're seeing are the same pieces of data. There's nothing different. It's just how we deliver it to the customer.
Yeah.
Make it as useful as possible.
Maybe it wouldn't be as useful for dry fire as I was thinking. If it doesn't track, it wouldn't necessarily track that as good. I mean, does that?
So yeah, you can. So you'll be able to. There's a bunch of different graphs that we can deliver because they're on 6 different degrees of freedom. So one of them is an acceleration. So acceleration will end up. Well, they're all acceleration, I should say, but they're in different axes, right? So you'll be able to detect the firing pin and all that stuff, even if you're not shooting a round. You will be able to
see that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's super sensitive. You'll see all of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then it would do kind of what I was thinking. That might be kind of cool to try out. Hey man, cool. Anything you want to throw out there about Grayboe or Reactor or anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
We've got a lot of stuff in the works. Like this right about now is like this. Everything's seeming to really come together for us as a company, at Grayboe specifically. We're going to be probably doing some collaboration stuff, Reactor and Grayboe together. Some integration stuff we're really excited about.
Smart stocks.
Smart stocks, yes. And then there's a lot of potential for this. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but so we're going to be doing that. Grayboe has got itself into a position where we're launching product on a regular basis now. So you should probably see 4-6, products from us a year. Like we're really starting to get this engine turning and this flywheel spinning in a very efficient manner. So I'm excited about that. Like we're going to be moving pretty fast now. It's taken us some time to really kind of figure out how to organize everything, how to get our design team and it's because we do everything in-house. We design parts, we make molds, we make our product, everything's done in-house, sales, marketing, all that stuff. So all that working together takes time to really see, like, it's like this just you're cranking through and it's just, and you're grinding and grinding. And the next thing you know, it starts to really move. And we're kind of at that point right now where it's starting to really loosen up. And like I said, we launched the Eagle this year. In January, we're going to launch the Phoenix 2. We're going to launch the Eagle non-adjustable. We'll come out with a Ridgeback 2. This year, we'll probably have a Renegade 2. I mean, so we're really kind of moving things. And like I said, hopefully carbon fiber stock by the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year. So that is our number one priority outside of, or what we're already doing with our current product line. So so that'll be really, so that's I guess
Yeah. Awesome.
30
the down
seconds.
low. Awesome.
Yeah, the down low, right.
Awesome. Getting it's gonna be cool to see all the new stuff coming out. Another awesome company out there making cool stuff and more options. It's that's awesome to see. I'm glad to hear it's all taken off. That's awesome. So cool, man. Well, that's all I got. Where can people go? Where do we go to check stuff out? Questions, comments, concerns for Ryan?
Yeah. Start with grayboe.com, grayboe.com. That's our website. One of the great things, we put a lot of information out either via email or text. So you can sign up for email or text if you're interested. We're constantly on Instagram, Facebook. We have a YouTube page. So all that, it's all basically /Grayboe at all those. I have a personal Instagram. I do some stuff. It's mostly geared towards the company, but it shows a little bit more detailed stuff of what's going on. So it's just Ryan_MC_Millan. If you want to kind of check out some different angle of the company. So, and then Reactor is reactorusa.com. But I think over the next 6 months, we're going to be doing some. That'll change a little bit as well. So I'll keep you guys updated with that. But
awesome.
For now, reactorusa.com.
Awesome. Sounds good. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to come on and talk about us, about Grayboe and Reactor and get us all up to speed.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Kurt.
Awesome. Thanks again, man. So with that, everybody, hope you enjoyed the show. Questions, comments, or concerns, you're going to go kirk@precisionriflemedia.com, or you can go to kirk@precisionriflemedia.com, click on the contact, just precisionriflemedia.com. Click on the contact us section. That will shoot me an email. If you really want answers quickly, you're going to go Elyse, ELYSE @precisionriflemedia.com, and or Facebook. Go to the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. We're all over it now. So with that, everybody, take care. Try to get to the range. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.